Well, it looks like we are the only live show tonight there, Tim.
It would appear to be. It would appear to be. Well, first of all, happy Friday to everybody.
Abso-freaking-lutely. It is my favorite day of the week because normally I get 2 days off to go do whatever it is that I want to do out in the boonies, right? But today, this weekend, it's not happening. I actually have to go into work tomorrow.
What?
But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's been probably a year since I've had overtime. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it.
Why not? Yes. A little double bubble. Nice.
Right. But let me introduce our guest for tonight. We have Toby Johnson. Now, we haven't had Toby Johnson on for probably a year plus. Way back when we started the Element 115, he was one of our first 5 or 6 guests or something that we brought on, and he was awesome. This guy is into everything. Let me just run through a couple things for you guys, okay? So he is a talent at Discovery Channel's Expedition Bigfoot. He is a host and producer at A Flash of Beauty podcast, producer and founder of Olympic Strange Days. Now, this guy has got his fingers in just about everything. We're talking about Bigfoot. We're talking about cryptids. We're talking about the paranormal. And we're talking about UFOs and anything else that is strange and bizarre in the Pacific Northwest. This guy has got his fingers in it. He knows just about everybody. In fact, he knows me.
What?
Yeah, but he we have had a good time together. We did an expedition together, and I was on his show, and we did Element 115 show as well. And he is a very genuine guy, just a genuine guy. Not only that, he's a great artist. This is the guy that did all of my masks that you see over here on the left-hand side. This guy is extremely right-brained. He is extremely talented, and I am so happy once again to have him on the show tonight to talk about what is going on here in the Pacific Northwest. He has an event coming up, and I want him to explain that. Before we get into that, we're going to go ahead and roll our intro. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then we'll get into it with Mr. Toby here. Let's see, where is that? If I can find it. There it is. Okay, here comes the intro.
Welcome to the dimension of the unknown, where the imagination reigns supreme, crafting worlds and realities that defy the limitations of our mortal coil. Beyond the veil of reality, there exists a realm that defies the boundaries of human perception. Certain places beckon with an otherworldly allure, stirring the senses and whispering secrets of a dimension that lies just beyond the threshold of our mundane existence. The air is alive with an electric anticipation, as if the next step might unravel the very fabric of reality, plunging us into an abyss from which there is no return. This realm is a boundless expanse, as infinite as the cosmos and as timeless as the ages. It inhabits the twilight zones of existence, where the glow of knowledge and the shadows of ignorance entwine like lovers in a cosmic dance. Here, the rational and the mystical converge, suspended between the depths of human terror and the pinnacle of our understanding. Welcome to Element 115.
I do want to say real quick that we are saddened by Jeff Meldrum's passing. And no one knows Jeff Meldrum. Well, I should say I don't know Jeff Meldrum or Jeffrey Meldrum as well as Toby does. So I want to bring him on real quick. And before we get into our show, I want him to say some things because he's got some anecdotal stuff and some poignant stuff to say about Jeff. So let's bring him in.
Hey,
bud.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Good to see everybody.
Yeah,
too,
definitely. Sir. It's been a while.
So excuse the impromptu podcast studio here. I promise there probably shouldn't be any robberies behind me here at the gas station. So I think we got 5 bars flowing here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That's great. All right. Well, I live in a place out here in the sticks, and Starlink just can't get above the Cedars and Doug firs. So we'll make do with what we got. But I appreciate you mentioning Jeff, Dr. Meldrum. And, so my experience with him has always been one of, respect, maybe mutual respect, as far as how they presented themselves in public and out of the public. And I guess that was what I was most impressed with, is that Jeff never really had a bad thing to say about anybody. And he always kept it on the straight and narrow as far as evidence is concerned, very collegiate and scientifically minded. And he had a wealth of understanding on the foot morphology of all sorts of things besides Sasquatch. But I just want anecdotally a couple stories real quick. One of the things that I remember early on, like 2009 timeframe, Jeff didn't know me from Adam, and I thought I'd have a conference out in Oregon called Oregon Sasquatch Symposium. I took all my GI Bill money and I threw it in towards throwing my first conference in the little town of Eugene, Oregon. And at that time, Jeff was coming off of a Monster Quest bubble. And somehow, some way, I got a hold of him, and it worked out. It was, pretty small honorarium at that time, and got him out to Eugene. And he took a big risk, pretty much just based upon the I guess the blessing of Autumn Williams and a guy named Tom Yamaron, who is a Bigfooter, kind of close to Bob Gimlin. Anyway, the point was that Jeff came out and kind of talked to me one-on-one at the Red Lion Inn in Eugene, Oregon, circa 2009, and kind of gave me a debrief on how all this works in the Bigfoot world, right? Like, because there wasn't a lot of conferences happening circa 2000 to 2009. There were maybe like 4 big ones around at that time. But, I said, Jeff, just give me an appreciation of what we're talking about as far as Sasquatch behavior here. How smart are they? And he goes, well, let's just talk about how smart chimpanzees are. And I said, okay, give me an example. And he goes, I work in these enclosures and I study foot morphology of Sasquatch. And in those environments, oftentimes there'll be like a sand trap and then a jungle terraform and then more dirt. And they walk through these different environments. And Jeff basically studies, in this case, chimpanzee foot morphology as they're walking or brachiating or going quadruped. And he goes, after they go off for lunch or, up to the monkey bars, I'll go into the enclosure when I'm safe to be away from a chimpanzee, which is a very dangerous animal, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I'll study the trackway of the foot morphology. And as I'm leaving, I need a clean sample. And so just like a golf rake sitting there on the side of the wall, I'll bring it inside and I'll rake the grass and rake the sand in particular. And he goes, I'll be darned if one time I didn't go back and watch the chimpanzees come into the enclosure. And as they walk through the sand, they looked at me and then they looked down at their feet and they started to back out of their trackway and move the sand by hand. He goes, in fact, they were so anal about covering their own tracks after watching me that they would move individual granules of sand to cover their tracks. Wow. He goes, so if they can do that, these things can do that. And that's when I was clued into the fact that we're talking about something so impressive, so beautiful, and certainly doesn't seem to be attached to what I would call something evil, right? Like I wasn't get the impression that I was studying devil monkeys or Nephilim. They just sounded like incredible creatures that we could scientifically understand. So that was my initial launching pad, was hearing something like that over, steak and eggs with Jeff Meldrum. And Jeff, after he blows your mind on stage, and should say that Jeff and I did not see eye to eye at all on what the phenomena actually was, but we always had this mutual, understanding. In fact, we were just on stage like in February of 2025, having a back and forth together about the supernatural nature of Sasquatch, because I totally buy into that. I believe that. I've experienced the supernatural nature of Sasquatch. And Jeff was very kind, when this back and forth exchange. And it's pretty intimidating to have a conversation with somebody that's so scientifically minded, and you're talking about something that doesn't have a label yet, right? This is undiscovered science. And I by no means am a scientist at all. So anyway, that's my experience. As the guy was always blowing minds, absolutely genuine. And the last thing I'll say is that we actually interviewed him for a Flash of Beauty, the podcast, like 3 years ago. And I was really surprised at what Jeff Meldrum knew about UFO disclosure. If people go back into the archives of A Flash of Beauty and listen to that podcast, he just touches the edges of what he knows. But I believe Jeff was watching this issue unfold as far as UAPs, UFOs, disclosure, crash retrieval, all this stuff. You're naming your show Element 115. You probably knew all about Bob Lazar. And I believe he was watching that issue unfold to see how the Bigfoot issue would unfold. And I think it was a good model. And I think it is a good model. And that's why I think this is the perfect time to talk about the supernatural nature of Sasquatch, because it is so, well, let's just call Bigfoot UFOs. I think that's probably a good name for him. So anyway, we can talk about why you think that, but my condolences, whatever that means, to his family and his kids, because I think he had a lot of children, and his church community, and to people like Doug Hychek and Cliff Barrickman, who looked up to Jeff so highly. They've lost their best friend, and it happened so quickly. So, hug somebody tonight, call somebody tonight that you haven't talked to, and you want to reconnect with, because you never know. Life quits on you in an instant.
Yeah, it seems that way lately, for sure. So you have created an event, and this is the second year that you've done this. Is that correct?
It is the second year of the what we call Olympic Strange Days, and it was born out of the necessary, the needed excuse of me to go out in the woods once again, right? So that's what it was born out of. And so what we do, Lee, is, and you'll experience it this time, on our first one, there's about 30 of us up in the Olympics. And what we bring in is experts in their own discipline. We call them field guides. And the field guides come in and they do some on-site training about their discipline. Last year it was Simeon Hine, Dr. Simeon Hine, who teaches remote viewing. He's been looking into crop circles, pretty hot and heavy, and talking about what is called dark matter monsters, which is a whole long story, and it takes three days probably to break it down. And then, of course, we had Barb Shoup in there talking about the cloaking Sasquatch that she encountered, that we talk about heavily in A Flash of Beauty, and a whole host of other people as well. Rich Germeau was teaching on-site detective work as far as how to track and fingerprint latent DNA. And then we did a lot of ghost hunting. Like we went out and did the, what's that called? The Estes method out in the Olympic Peninsula. And I will say this, we will do the Estes method again, but after experiencing the Estes method a couple different times, I believe that the Estes method may be the perfect way to induce Sasquatch behavior to come into camp. Because whatever is happening with the Estes method, I don't think it's as much as a spirit box. And we should probably explain here real quick, is that the Estes method basically makes you a hollow bone or a transmitter for the spirit world by cutting off your senses, right? Mainly your hearing and your visual points. And you're basically a transistor radio for the spirit world as other people are asking you questions. Okay, but what we found out on the first Olympic Strange Days is that activity was coming down the mountain towards us. And I've had this happen now on almost every occasion that we've used the Estes method out in the woods, is that it actually turns the audience as well as the transmitter into a target zone for the action. So I think that's fascinating. That's the kind of stuff we're doing, right? Like, I don't know if anybody else is having conferences out in the woods like this. They probably are. I don't know, but not out here in the Olympics. And, you know, some people think that we're batshit crazy because we do it differently. But I think that this shouldn't be so much hard work. I think you're just leaning into the fun side, the exciting side of the phenomenon. And to me, that seems to be working.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So with this get together, or this basically this get together that out in the Olympics, is this like a group of professionals that are just working together, or is it like for anybody can sign up for it? How does this work?
Yeah, so it's this year's first come first serve, and we have we had a limited run on tickets. I think we sold out in 12 hours, and we had like 35 tickets available, and then I opened up a few more. So there was an audience waiting to get to know the group of speakers. Now, I think we had only like 3 or 4 speakers when people signed up. I think what it tells me is that there's a whole host of people that want to get out and have nature come to them, right? Like enough of the hotel experience and the casino experience, right? Like they can do that other places. I do that other places, but something different happens when you go out in the woods, especially at night. There's other things that happen to your senses that you don't necessarily have happen when you're a city dweller. And those are the kind of things that I'm really excited to present and experience myself, is nature in its rawness, in a controlled environment, at least this one more so than last year, because it is in a primitive campground near the town of Forks, Washington. And but we're right on the edge of the Olympics. Like, you walk out the gate, you go up half a mile, and you could very well have some interesting stuff happen to you.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Well, Lee came up. He was up with us. I'm in what is it? I guess northern British Columbia. And Lee came up. What was that? About 3 weeks ago now. And we've been doing an investigation on area up here. It's called Flight 21. It's one of the Canada's longest unsolved mysteries. 1965. I think it was like 59 people died in a plane crash just about 40, maybe 50 miles from the house here. And yeah, we were up there, and same thing. Lee came up, and I like that. I like being out in the woods and actually sitting and talking and experimenting and investigating. I absolutely love it. I do love the hotels. We do love the speakers and all that sort of stuff. But where the rubber hits the road is when you're out in the dirt and the trees. And absolutely love it. And Lee had a good time. I think I did.
I had a fantastic time.
That's awesome.
And Toby, what you're doing, I think, is unique in a lot of ways. You do have contact in the desert and stuff like that, but they actually take those groups out into the desert to view phenomena at night. The whole thing that you are doing is, it is all out in the wilderness from 24 hours, 48 hours, and on. What was it, like 3 or 4 days long, just about, right? So this is huge, and I think it's something that is definitely needed in our community, is where you get together with people with like minds, yes, but they research differently as far as the paranormal and the supernatural goes. and you can share ideas. I mean, this is for me, this is like a kid in a candy store is what this is.
Yeah.
I'm completely excited about it.
Well, and I would love to have more what I would call apers come speak about their evidence in regards to what they're finding out, because the apers in the community who believe that Bigfoot is still an ape, if we're going to talk about Sasquatch, they still have a lot to give. I mean, they work just as hard as us, but I think they actually work harder because they're looking for something that doesn't exist. I think they're looking for a mountain monkey, and this is a space monkey, right? And so I think they're working twice as hard to get the evidence, but the stuff that they're finding, like, I'll just say the Olympic project, the stuff that they're finding with the nest, to me is just, it's so impressive, this whole nest issue here. And if you haven't had a chance to look into what's going on as far as Sasquatch nests in the Olympic Peninsula, Jeff was super involved with coming out here and studying these giant, I think they're almost like 8.5 by 10 foot wide in circumference, ground dwelling nests. And there's a lot of data that goes along with this discovery here. So, guys like that working their butt off to find out what's going on with mountain monkey, I want to hear about it, because I think it's pretty damn important about whatever they're doing when they come and are completely terrestrial, we'll call that. Right. They have some data to give from those experiences too, besides their footprints.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think that all of this stuff ties together. If you have a UFO experience, you're going to go home and you might have paranormal experience as well that follows you. There are things that have happened in my life that tell me that these things are connected in some way. I don't know how it's connected. I have no idea. But the phenomena seems to follow us through, right? So getting all these people together with these different modalities, right? They have different ways of studying the phenomenon for themselves, and getting everybody together is going to make the people that go to this so much better equipped when we go off by ourselves to do things. What you have started, I hope grows and grows and grows. I really do.
Yeah. Well, the dream would be to do these in the spring, summer, and fall, and have 3 different versions of them for 3 different, because in the summer you can't have a fire, right? Like too much fire season. And that's why we're having it later, the second week of October. But I would like to have one in the spring, summer, and fall, and kind of maybe shrink the numbers down a little bit and do smaller numbers, because it's all about the intimacy of getting to know the presenter out in the woods and hanging around the campfire with them, telling stories. But this time around, it just kind of grew and grew and grew to the point where just like, well, we need a bigger place to do it. We had half of the campground. We went ahead and reserved the whole campground about a week and a half ago. So now we've got, I think there's 12 acres. We should be good with 12 acres, right? It will have more of like a festival vibe. And the one thing I will say though is that let me just go through the kind of people that we have coming out to this one. So we do have a fair amount of mediums that have come out of the woodwork here. Now, generally, I don't have a lot of faith in mediumship, but I've met some good ones, and 2 of the good ones are showing up here that I know of, as well as so what I would call like wisdom keepers. So from the Macaw Reservation, we have Larry and Inella Benz. Larry is a Macaw elder, lives near Lake Ozette area. Had incredible stuff happen at Larry's house personally, on 2 occasions actually. And so Larry's going to be coming out as a wisdom keeper with his wife Inelia, and they have like a retreat center out off of Lake Ozette for people to come learn different modalities every week. This is what they do full time, is what I do once a year. And so Larry will be out, and he actually does crystal ball stuff. So I mean, a Native American that works with crystal balls is like super enchanting and mystical. So Larry will be out with his crystal ball, and Inelia will be teaching some tarot stuff. And she has an incredible story. She has an amazing story about cloaking involving Sasquatch that I think she'll tell.
Mm.
And then we have, of course, Resonance Production that have done Flash of Beauty. Actually, we're on Flash of Beauty 3 right now. And that's going to be all about the Native American experience. And also coming out, we'll talk more about this here in a second, is Voices in the Wilderness, the Sierra Sound story. People know about 10% of what happened in the Sierra Sounds. Ron knew about 10% of what happened in the Sierras, and Ron told it well. But there's 90% nobody knows about. And that 90% is going to blow people away, because if you think Sasquatch language is interesting,
Mm-hmm.
this just opens up the floodgates for what we've been talking about with things like UAPs. Also, David Johnson will be on hand virtually. David's only spoken one time about a month ago about growing up in the Sierra camp. He was one of the original children that was brought up into the Sierra camp since the 1960s. His father and his uncle founded in the 50s. And David's going to come on and talk about his experiences that he had up there, as much as we can without him, giving too much away for the film. And so to have David talk about these experiences is going to blow people away. And then, of course, we got a lot more people showing up, including Maureen Morgan, who, she's going to be speaking about these megalithic structures she's found, I believe, out in the South Pacific. And she's still ongoing research about these I guess they're undocumented megalithic structures that no one really is interested in looking at except her. And they're so impressive and so weird that you won't believe that you've never heard of them. And oh, by the way, she also is like an ex-MUFON investigator who's totally gone rogue. And I guess her bag of tricks is understanding what's happened to the abductee, and taking them to the next level of being able to deal with it in some cases. So, boy, oh boy, Kevin and Sandy Nelson will be on hand too. They're a retired couple from Ocean Shores, Washington. They're probably some of the most hardworking, most learned people at Sasquatch habituation areas. They pretty much go everywhere on the West Coast, from Southern California to Canada and Washington, researching full time. And so to have them on hand is going to be a lot of fun. And of course, Rich Germeau, who is a La Push detective police officer, when I think he had 2 sightings. He was also one of the founders of the Olympic Project, and he did a lot of on-site collection as a police officer for the Ketchum DNA study. And so he knows quite a bit about the subject matter. And then my girlfriend and I, Allie and Tobe, will be on hand, and we hope to be able to present to you part of our documentary about a werewolf that was seen in the Redwood Forest, the Jedediah National Forest, in 2017 by a Washington native up here. We just got back about a month ago filming this documentary, and the guy has 2 photographs that will blow your mind of a broad daylight, 8.5 foot tall werewolf that he saw. And, maybe we should call it a dog man, but we definitely don't want to call it a Bigfoot because of the photograph, right? Like, this was definitely an upright ears, upright dog, canine looking animal. And so we got a lot of surprises and fun in store for people. It's coming up on the 9th through the 12th. If you want to buy a ticket, we still have some slots available because we did get the other side of the campground, and you can just go to olympicstrangedays.com and be a part of the fun.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to do that for sure. And I think, you kind of started this. There was other things that we have done when we did our events, where we would go out after the event and then go do like a paranormal investigation or a UFO investigation. But doing the whole thing out in the wilderness, this is what needs to happen. It really does. And learning from other people. But I know that Tim is burning with a question right now.
Just burning. So very interesting. Like, loving everything about it. And that sounds like a lot of fun. I'd love to be going to one of those. I think that'd be just a blast. So just for people that don't know Toby Johnson, how did Toby Johnson start? Like, where did you get your interest? Where did you get going on your extraterrestrial experience? Or like, where did this all start for you?
Well, so this started with a trackway that my son found in 2005. Actually, it was a single track in the mud outside of Springfield, Oregon. And we were on a simple day hike. And it was about February 2005, I believe. And it was just a single, like 14-inch barefooted track that was walking into the blackberry bushes. At least that's where it seemed to be headed. I don't know. And it started a larger question. Can we get to know the subject matter of Bigfoot and debunk this? And so we found out at the time that we actually were neighbors with a guy by the name of Ron Olson. And Ron had spent the 1970s, all of the 1970s, and probably hundreds of thousands of dollars researching Bigfoot and also producing a pretty well-known Sasquatch film called Sasquatch. You can find it on YouTube. Him and the director, Ed Ragazzino, kind of loosely based it on Gimlin and Roger.
Mm-hmm.
And he was my neighbor. And I said, Ron, dude, let me talk to a witness. Like, have you seen one? And he's just like, you know, after all these years, I don't really talk about Bigfoot anymore. And I said, what? He goes, yeah, I just kind of done with it. And he goes, but if you want to talk to someone and see some evidence, you can get a hold of this fishing guide. And I was like, set me up. I want to talk to this fishing guide. And so the fishing guide name was Dave Rodriguez. He met me at a fairgrounds in Eugene, Oregon, like a month later, and took me out in the woods within like a week. And the adrenaline rush, I was already an outdoorsy kind of guy, like, you know, like anything that had to do with outdoor adventure, I was down. And when I thought, you know, when I went out Bigfooting for my first time in 2005 with Dave, and it was snowy, I was like, how are we going to do this in the snow? He's just like, watch. And so the dedication of a man driving a Ford Ranger through, you know, like 2 feet of snow to get to a Bigfoot area, I saw the look in his eye, and it's just like, this guy really believes that they're out here. And then I started to get the look in my eye, right? Like that look in a guy's eye when they're out Bigfooting, that comes from a place of like, they had an experience, right? Like they've been transformed by the phenomena. And so that's what got me started, just high adventure. The fact that I could, some reason people were willing to talk to me and tell me their stories to the degree where I could go to their property and research.
Oh, wow.
And that's like that's the ultimate, when they just like, hey, here's the keys to the house. We're going to be on vacation. There, you know, there's 20 acres back there. Go for it. And that happened like on 2 occasions. And that's when stuff started to happen. As soon as I could find out that I didn't have to be an ambulance chaser to chase down the phenomena, that I could embed myself. And I'd say the first people that really opened their home to me was Autumn Williams and her mother, Sally. And they were experiencers from Ording, Washington, that had transplanted down to Elkton, Oregon, which was about an hour from where I live. And they're just like, hey, come by, we'll make you dinner. And you can experience the phenomena just right outside of our acreage. Wow. And so that was like, oh my gosh, like I don't have to waste a ton of my time and gas chasing after this. People are saying they're having experiences at their home. And so that was really the catalyst. And that added the whole new layer of the phenomena.
Right.
Definitely. And I know what you mean by that. I went out with some people, and when I first started, you know, going out and looking for Bigfoot, because I'm not a researcher, and I'm not going to say I'm a researcher. So yeah, we were out on an adventure, and we were going to experience it. And I mean, we weren't driving through 2 feet of snow or anything, but the person I was with, I know what you mean. The eyes lock in, and they, you know, it was just an excitement, and it's contagious. And then when we got out there, and I'm like you, I'm an outdoors guy. Same with Lee. Anything to do with being outdoors, I'm in. And going out and adding that element to being outside and being in the outdoors, just addiction.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Definitely an addiction, and it's a good one. I love it.
exactly. That's what it is. It's once you had your first situation happen, whatever it is,
Mhm.
Mhm.
you're a lifer.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. So the second thing I was going to ask you, so there's that team A and team B, and I shouldn't say teams because it's not a team, but there's people that believe, like you say, they're mountain apes and they're born and bred in their blood and bone, and then there's the people that think they're terrestrial. I lean a little bit more to the terrestrial side, and it seems that you do as well. And what I find actually is, and I don't know about you, and this I'll get to my point, is that people that I find that with the Sasquatch realm, when you've got the two factions or the two beliefs, um, it seems to come together a lot nicer than the UFO UAP situation. I find that with Sasquatch and Bigfoot, people seem to be, they just want to hear what you have to say. I find that UFO and UAP side of things, people that can be contentious and people can get a little snippy about it. But I find the Bigfoot and Sasquatch world to be a little more gentle, if that makes any sense. I don't know what your experience with it is, but that's been mine anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe my theories are so out there that I may get a little bit more pushback than you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because it's been pretty public what I've experienced and what I think is going on.
Right.
However, there is a trend, right? Like you can't go to a conference now without there being a MUFON booth and a Ghostbuster booth. Like these worlds there's a convergence happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, it's all being addressed underneath the fact that we're in a convergent timeline for this UAP issue, right? Because whatever's going on with UAPs, they're not shutting up about it. And it certainly doesn't just seem to be hardware, off-world tech. There's something interdimensional going on here.
Right.
They hint at it. They throw all these code words out like non-human intelligence, or they come between the pages. I'm just like, well, what are you really saying here? I mean, you get into some of the stuff, like I think it was Representative Luna that was on Joe Rogan a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And she was saying that this is an interdimensional phenomenon. This is coming straight out of a congresswoman's mouth. So it's an incredible time. And I think that what we're dealing with right now, here's a funny anecdote. Like, we have a lot of physical evidence on my property. And if you talk to the Native Americans about keeping physical evidence of Sasquatch in your house, then you should probably be prepared for the hitchhiker effect. And so we have a lot of hitchhiker effect. And in short, hitchhiker effect means that your house is haunted by the phenomena, like a poltergeist phenomena, not just Bigfoot. No. Something else, something supernatural is going to happen if you have footprints or hair, in this case, handprints, all of it in our case. And periodically, some of the hair that I would have on hand would disappear. And I just want to bring that up because I was just having a conversation with Brett Eichenberger, the director of Flash of Beauty, who was given a piece of hair from these knee impressions that were 1,400 plus pounds, human-like knees cast from Cottage Grove, Oregon by me and the landowner Daryl Adams back in 2018. So just imagine giant Sasquatch knees with hair coming out of them, and then casting those in plaster and bringing those to a museum and dropping them off. Well, certain hairs were excised from these knee impressions and put inside little paper bags or little envelopes or glass containers. And I'd be darned if on one occasion the hairs didn't disappear from the little glass jar. And the same thing happened to another hair, I believe, on the same day to Brett Eichenberger, the director of Flash of Beauty. And so what is that? Like, if those hairs disappear, and in this case reappeared, and we're not crazy, right? Like, if something else is happening with what Sasquatch can do, then this is a much bigger conversation than, I've heard people espouse theory that Sasquatch hair has hollow guards in it, kind of like a polar bear, and that light is sent through the hairs and therefore it reflects differently. Okay, that's fine, but witnesses don't say that. That didn't happen to me. when you have like a 1,000-pound upright being run behind you in the broad daylight and then stop
Mhm.
12 inches from your body,
Wow.
that's not a polar bear, right? Like, as far as that theory is concerned. So these are the kind of things that I think are way fun to get into. And, you know, these are the kind of experiences that I still want to have and chase after.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering if realities are mixing. Like there's a reality where we're at, right? And there's another reality like a bubble that is bumping into our bubble and then has this bleed through. And you get this mixing of possible Sasquatch and gnomes and these different things that bleed into our reality, fairies. And then you've got another reality over here where you've got aliens that are also bleeding in through into our reality. And obviously they have the tech to go in and out. Oops. We just lost Tim James. Well, we'll bring him back in when he shows up. Anyway, so I'm wondering if there's not this mixing of realities. Almost, you know, when you go to blow a bubble and it's got this amorphous texture on it with these different colors and stuff that mix around the ball. If that's somehow what we've got going on here in our own reality. And we've got this bleeding of different things from the paranormal and Bigfoot and all of this stuff bleeding into reality. Our reality isn't static. It continues to shift. And that's maybe what's going on here. What do you think about that, Toby?
Well, it's interesting you use the analogy of a bubble, because oftentimes what we're finding through mainly audio recording, which I believe is the best way to get close to the phenomena, is to present them an audio recorder, because they're very passive with audio. They're very non-passive when it comes to video. They don't like their picture taken. They don't want a video taken. They're super camera shy, whatever. They do crazy stuff on camera. I don't think they're fully in this dimension most of the time when they present themselves on camera. That's what a blob squatch would most likely be, in my opinion. But through the audio, when we get into this in our story, the Al Moon Lab, right, is there's like 1,400 hours worth of audio, a lot of it recorded by myself and Daryl Adams. And we found that there was a relationship between popping sounds. Now let's call these wood knock sounds. Okay, fine. We'll call them wood knock sounds, but not always. Sometimes they sound like a switch being flicked. Sometimes they sound like the mic head getting tapped or flicked. Sometimes it sounds like an electric pop. And so I just called these energetics, right? Like this is a form of like a variable state of energy. And these variable states of energy pop into existence sometime. And there's no reason for them, especially in controlled environments, inside houses, inside a locked garage, inside of a mailbox, inside of cardboard boxes. However, we could study it to control the mechanism. And a lot of times after these popping sound, there would be things like language, EVPs, footsteps, objects that suddenly appear, apportations. I can give examples of those. One we're almost able to see happen, but it was just outside of a doorway, inexplicable apportation. And I don't know how many Bigfooters are putting those two things together as far as these popping sounds being related to activity about to happen, including orbs. But there's absolutely a relationship between what I would call energetic sounds and Sasquatch behavior presenting itself, including what I believe is physical, I don't know, teleportation or manifestation, right? Like a lot of times, I mean, there's people that aren't putting the puzzle pieces together that Sasquatch doesn't need to walk into the camera. They don't need to walk into where your recorder is. Let's say you have a giant farmer's field full of corn and you don't hear any pretense sound of entrance of a subject. And then suddenly you have Sasquatch behavior. my theory is that listen again to that sound in particular, because I bet you there's a pop beforehand. And if these pops, if we can study how this works by saying, is there an EMF discharge when these pop happens? Certainly we've gotten into that with Doug Hitchhiker's work, is that there seems to be a connection between wood knock sounds and there being an EMF spike. No one's really studying whether or not there's a radiation consequence of being around this phenomena, but there could be a health consequence, because if they are related to the UFO phenomena, hell, there's claims right now for enlisted men and officers that are injured approaching UAPs, right? Like they're getting checks written once a month from the DOD. And so can this happen with this phenomena? I keep an open mind about it. I keep an open mind about the healing aspect of them. But maybe one of the reasons they don't come around us so much is that there's a negative consequence to the energy distortion. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know.
Right. Well, here next month in October when we get together, I've got, hopefully we'll be in an area where there's no Sasquatch. And I do have a Geiger counter. So maybe we'll see what happens there with that. We did, when we were up at Flight 21 and where they had witnessed a UFO come down, I was getting higher spikes with my Geiger counter. And that UFO did come down like 2 years prior, and there was still residue in the area. So it's very possible, even years after a craft has been in an area, still to have the area give off a little bit more radiation.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, has anybody put a Geiger counter, on top of like a recent trackway to see whether or not the trackway is releasing some kind of, I guess you'd call it like a latent signature of some kind. So I don't know. I mean, this is all new territory, and these are the kind of conversations I would have loved to have with someone like, Dr. Jeff Meldrum. I don't know if privately he was entertaining the ideas like this, but he must have been a fan of at least the science fiction mind, right? To be interested in UAPs as much as he was. So I kind of hope that eventually we could have, had a Diet Coke and talked about this kind of stuff. But since it never happened, I talk to this Dr. Simeon Hine. If nobody's ever looked into or read Dark Matter Monsters or Black Swan Ghost, I believe is his latest book, you can go to Dr. Simeon Hine, Hein, watch his YouTube channel, and he pretty much talks about his book 24/7, interviews people, and he's got some really interesting notions about, and we had a chance to bring him out to the Al Moon Lab in July and actually walk him around the area, and we did have some phenomena happen on camera with him, so that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. What you're talking about here is you're bringing these different modalities together. We all have different tools that we come with, depending on what we're researching or we're pretending what we're interested in. But mixing those tools together to see what we can come up with. I mean, I've got people here that are saying, take a compass into the footstep and see what happens. And maybe even trying a metal detector and seeing what happens in a footstep. I mean, these are all really, really good ideas. And that type of forum where we have these people with these different thoughts coming into, and maybe helping to figure out some of these anomalies and figure out some of these, answers to some of these questions are, most likely we're going to have more questions, really. It never stops. But yeah.
Well, and I think one of the reasons the footstep thing, just to press on this a little bit more, no pun intended, is that I used to hear that Bigfoot prints were too shallow or too deep given the substrate, even with the moisture index or the water table, and that sometimes in snow they should have been a lot deeper than they were in fresh snow, and they just weren't. and they were more shallow in places like mud, where they shouldn't have been, given like the size and the width. And what we found is that was the case, at least when it came to like 4 separate footprints we found in the gravel at the Al Moon lab. And I think it's important to what you just discussed, is that these footprints that we found were right outside of this metal shop where we had a lot of action. And outside of this metal shop in this rural community where there's like 3 farmhouses, was a gravel bed. And in order to get from A to B, you had to walk through the gravel. And so oftentimes we would hear approach and exits from subjects that we couldn't explain. And then in this case, we found size 15 by like 4-inch wide footprints in the gravel. So let me explain how this works. Is it's impossible to leave barefooted tracks pressed down into the hard pan in large bedded gravel. And not only did these things push the rocks down into the hard pan, but they left toes. And not only did they leave the impression and the outline of where the toes were, they had a defined granular edge to the heel. And as it pressed down, something vibrated this sand in order to get it so damn smooth around that heel's edge. It was just seamless. And so to me, it's the smoking gun evidence, as far as I'm concerned, that when they leave a track, they're not just pressing down. There's a vibrational thing happening, right? It's tantamount to what Nikola Tesla was talking about. And this is, you know, this goes back to the work of Henry Franzoni, one of the forefathers that we lost recently. In fact, Henry, we lost about 1 year ago next week. And so let that sink in. We lost 2 legends within almost a year of one another. And this is what Henry told me back in 2008. It's just like, if you want to understand what's going on with Sasquatch, study, you know, frequency and vibration under Nikola Tesla, and then you'll get to know how the phenomena work. So we need tools, machines to do this. They don't, because if you believe in evolution, these things evolve differently than us. And this is how they're able to do what they do, is that they somehow shift their vibrational pinpoint, and they are not a variable state. They're not a constant. I mean, they're not a constant state. They're a variable state. And it's absolutely fascinating what they can do. And it's just it's something we'll never figure out, right? Like, and I'm okay with that. This is a mystery that is not meant to be figured out. It's meant to be enjoyed as a mystery. That's what I think. And so I'm just along for the ride.
Well, I think you got something there. You're talking about vibration. And one of my thoughts and one of my theories is that they use their chest cavity as a resonance type of speaker almost, right? And then they can make these super low frequency subsonic sounds, and then they might be able to pass from one reality into another. And while doing that in that other reality, do they weigh more? Are they able to press down deeper into the soil in that other frequency as it bleeds through from one reality or to the other? Are they, is it such that we are seeing a bleeding through of one dimension to another in the depth of the footprint? Or is the substrate in that other reality softer than the substrate here, and that's why they're pushing in deeper? Or is the gravity heavier? I don't know, but there's something going on, like you're saying. That's the only kind of thing that I could think of.
Yeah, I mean, this is when you need Simeon Hine here to talk about what he calls it relic neutrinos, which is a fascinating word for basically like the building blocks of the Big Bang evolving into a variable state instead of a constant. So we're a constant physical shape, although we're comprised of many little particles. These things can basically bifurcate their particles and become a variable state. And that's how they become light, right? This is what's been witnessed before time and time again, is Sasquatch becoming orbs or orbs becoming Sasquatch. And so this is the shapeshifter that everybody's talked about, you know, from native traditions. This is what they've been trying to explain to us. Now, does that make Sasquatch a skinwalker? Well, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, skinwalker sounds like bad news. Like the phenomena as we've experienced it is very playful, inquisitive, ironic, funny, compassionate. I'm taking a story from the Yakama Nation of a police officer that told me when she was a little girl on tribal land that Sasquatch basically gave her medical triage after she ran into a hornet's nest and delivered her back to her truck, and like opened the door for her and honked the horn so her dad would hear her a half a mile away and come respond to, you know, this poor daughter of his. If this is Sasquatch behavior doing these kind of things here, this is not the behavior of what I would, you know, call in Christian terms the Nephilim or something demonic.
Right.
I don't look at them as a skinwalker at all. However, they seem to have a personality profile that differs just like humans. And I think you can get some major a-holes that you do not want to wander into.
Yeah, you know, the rogue Sasquatch. You don't want to from yeah, our good buddy. Oh gosh, now I'm going to miss his name. You know who I'm talking about. He always says, "Beware the rogue Sasquatch."
Oh shoot, I don't know. I can't think of it.
Sasquatch Island.
Oh, you're talking about Thomas Seawood.
There you go. Yeah, he
Okay.
says, "Beware the rogue Sasquatch" for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can understand that one.
Yeah, definitely. But you know what? I appreciate you coming on the show. I kind of want you to kind of go into or to tell us where people can get tickets to the event that you've got going on and where it is and how much it costs and all of that sort of thing. So we can get those spots
sure.
filled up.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. So if you want to attend such a conference, it's happening on October 9th through 12th. You can go to olympicstrangedays.com. Just go to the RSVP button. I believe it's like a teal blue in the upper right-hand corner. And there you can read about the presenters, who's coming on board, what we've done in the past. Check out what we've done last year. There's some videos on there as well. And if you want to just go to olympicstrangedays.simpletix.com, you can do that as well. I think it's a $75 RSVP. That'll hold your spot per individual attending with you. And it should be a good time. You know, it's going to be in the rainforest. I will say that. In order for us to have, you know, a campfire, we need to put it off to the second week of October. We are going into a rainforest, so dress accordingly. And but a little bit of Mountain Dew ain't going to stop us. We hope to see you there. And, you know, tickets go on sale Black Friday 2025 at midnight, and we'll do this again next year in some shape, way, or form, probably at the same location. The other thing I'll say too real quick is that Voices in the Wilderness will be coming out. Thank you to everybody that helped contribute with the Kickstarter campaign. We met the goal with that. Now the film can come out early next year, as well as a 3-part series of A Flash of Beauty, part 3 on the First Nations experience from the Pacific to the middle of the country to the East Coast, a 3-part series. So should be a pretty interesting 2026.
Right on. So you do have plans to keep this going. What happens if you get a ton of interest? What are we looking at here? What is your brain conceiving?
No, yeah. So I don't think so. I mean, I think we're capping it off where it needs to be for it to be a worth. I wouldn't want to go to a big cluster F of a paranormal conference. I think this is about as big as it should get for the intimacy factor. So I don't see it growing anywhere close to, you know, more than what it is right now. And I guess since I'm setting the rules, it won't.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And I know that Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, my boss, will probably want to do something similar to what you've got going on up at Flight 21 and up there in Canada, because there's a lot of activity up there as well. And we have talked about having some sort of a Paracon up there as well. But I think your blueprint needs to carry through. I really do. You've got something special going on here, and I want more of it.
Yes. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. You know, and even on my side of things, I would love to do something similar to where I invite people out to do a skywatch at Mount Baker, Mount Adams, even down at East City Ranch, and get together with a bunch of like-minded people to do UFO hunting. Yeah, absolutely. All right, sir. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
I would love to have you on anytime. You know, and we got to go back out there, by the way. We got to go do some more investigating.
Unfinished business.
That's right. Absolutely. Sir.
All right. Thanks, Lee.
Yep. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. I just want to remind you all. Well, let me tell you first. Tim lost power. So he disappeared on us because unforeseen situations going on over there. But he's fine. He's okay. He texted me, just let me know that he lost power. Darn it. He's upset because he really liked this guest a lot. And obviously, you know, Toby and I have some stuff going on in the background, or we had previous times, and hopefully we'll get back up on that eventually. But anyway, you know what? Spaced Out Radio does not have ugly swag. And if I run over a little bit, I don't care, because Dave doesn't have a live show after this. You never know what I could come up with. Dear God. Anyway, I'm going to roll the outro, and I've got to work tomorrow. So, you know, I will see you all next Wednesday on Grant's show for UFO Max. And I cannot wait. There's so much going on right now. Even with the 3i Atlas, new things found, just stuff seems to happen daily. Anyway, so I bid you all a safe weekend, and take care of yourself and your loved ones. All right.